welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Motivation Monday video. I hope you have all had a fabulous weekend. So today's little motivation video is all about decluttering. I have been thinking about the different areas of my life that I would like to declutter. I am in a continuous process of decluttering. My life is always decluttering, and I think that's kind of an important part that I will talk about a little bit later. But today I was just inspired to talk about some tips to help you be inspired to declutter. I'm going to plant the seed with you today, and hopefully these little tips will help you get on with decluttering different areas of your life. If you would like any of these tips to be talked about more in depth, or even show you videos how I apply these tips, then please do let me know, because there's a few things that I want to get on with and I think they would make for great videos. So do let me know, and let's go ahead and get started. So the first tip is to break your entire life down into categories. When you look at your life as a whole, there are so many different areas that could do with some decluttering, and trying to approach it as a whole can be really overwhelming. So breaking it down into little categories. For example, you could declutter your home as one category. You could declutter your friends and the people in your life, because that's another category. I don't think people really consider people to be a category, but it definitely is. You know, if you're not putting enough effort into some people, or you're not receiving enough effort from some people, is it really worth maintaining that relationship? You know, you want to make sure that the relationships in your life are really important to you and really worthwhile and worth keeping. So those are just two different kinds of categories that you could look at your life. There's so many other ones. There's personal ones, there could be mental ones, you could have like work or study, and then of course you can break all of those categories down into smaller categories. For house examples would be like every room is a new category, and then if you wanted to break it down even further, like say you've got your bedroom, you could break that down into like the wardrobe, and then you've got your whole wardrobe, and there's just so many different categories you could trail down into from the major parts of your life. And when you focus on something that's smaller, it definitely seems less scary and less overwhelming, and it's way more attainable when something's smaller and your goals are smaller, but they do lead up to this ultimate decluttered goal. Also, just excuse if you hear any scratching or whatever. The rabbit is running around my room and he's just so happy to be out of his cage today. The second thing to do, especially with physical items, it can be a bit hard if you're thinking about maybe phone applications or computers and documents. This isn't as easy, but if it's something physical like your wardrobe or home decor, kitchen, whatever, things that you can actually physically hold and touch, a really great thing to do is to break it down into three different categories. I'm going to go with more categories, or you could call them piles if you wanted to, because you could physically put everything into piles. And there's always a yes pile. A yes pile is other things that you are definitely going to keep. There's also a no pile, which are the things that are definitely going, and then there's a maybe pile. And I feel like the maybe pile always ends up with so much more stuff in it than either the yes or the no, because we're always really unsure of whether we want to keep something or not. But I think having a maybe pile is so important, because get through everything that you absolutely know that it's a definitive yes or no, and then come back and then have a bit of a feel and a play around with the things that are in the maybe pile and see if it's something that you want to keep, and then you can go through that and just keep doing the same process and go yes, no, maybe, and then that maybe pile will get smaller and smaller and smaller. You might have to repeat this process 10 times going through that maybe pile, but eventually you'll get to a point where it's all done. There will be things that you will be unsure of that you will keep, but I will show you how to get rid of those things in a couple of steps time. The third thing is to ask yourself these questions as you're decluttering to get a better idea if they're things that you want to keep. If you're really struggling with that maybe pile, these questions will help you. So the first one is, have I used it in the last 6 months? Sometimes some advice will say 12 months. It kind of depends. I like to go by 6 months, but it's up to you. And I ask myself, have I used this in the last 6 months? And if the answer is yes, then it can probably go in the yes pile. If the answer is no, I then ask myself question number 2, will I use this in the next 6 months? Which there's times I've said yes and it goes back into, say, my wardrobe or my cupboard, whatever it is. And then 6 months later, when I go back and I repeat this process, I haven't used it. So then it definitely goes. But that's another great question to ask yourself. Another question, if you're unsure, is, does this have sentimental value? And just remember that even if we are gifted things, you don't always have to keep gifts. There are some things that are going to have more value than others, some things that are going to mean more to you than others. But don't feel bad for moving gifts on and out of your life, because there's only so much that we can have. So make sure that if you are keeping things that are gifts, they're the things that are really, really important to you. I definitely have a few things in my life that I have moved on that were gifts, but I also have some things that I have kept very close to me, and I don't want to get rid of them because they do just mean so much coming from the person or the people that they did come from. And the fourth question is, do I really need this? Like, it's the big question. Do you really need this? And it could be like having like, say you want to declutter your pencil case, for example, and you've got all kinds of pens and pencils and erasers and all different things mashed up in there. Do you really need that many pens? Do you really need that many erasers? Same with your makeup. Do you need that many lipsticks? Do you really need that many foundations? Do you need that highlighter, that particular highlighter that's probably the same as every single highlighter in your drawer? Do you really need it is a big question to ask. Number 4 is, as you're going along with your decluttering, you need to make sure that everything has a place. And I think this is probably one of the most important parts about decluttering, is you could clear out so much from your life only to realize that you still don't have enough space for everything that you decided to keep. And that's how things get really messy, and that's how homes or spaces or whatever it is can feel really cluttered and overwhelmed. And you could have decluttered everything and all of a sudden you're just like, it doesn't feel like I've done anything. And that's because not everything has a place. Everything needs a place. And I do struggle with this sometimes, especially if I buy new things and then I struggle to find somewhere to put it. I think it's really important to have kind of like almost like a junk bowl. This is a place where I can keep my keys and my wallet and all my like different like, you know, bits and bobs and stuff that I need to take out of the house with me, because I change handbags a lot and I'm coming and going, and I have a spot in my cupboard that's kind of just got all my receipts and all my stuff out of my handbags thrown into it. And right now it's not very pretty. And I would like to kind of have some sort of system that makes sure that everything's in place, because without that, everything's a complete mess. So you just need to make sure that in your cupboards, everything has a place. You know, if it's your linen cupboard, that all your towels and your bed sheets and everything fit in neatly. If they don't, maybe it's time to get rid of some of those bed sheets and towels. In your kitchen cupboard, does all your food and jars and everything fit in place? If not, maybe it's time to go through the kitchen cupboards. And this just applies to everything in your life. It needs to have a place in order for it to stay clean and feeling neat and not overwhelming and cluttered. Number 5 is in regards to buying new things. And when buying new things, it's a really good idea to go by the 1 in, 1 out rule. And that is, when you buy something new, take something old out. And this can work in all different areas of your life. I think wardrobe's probably a very good one. You know, how many black jackets do you really need, and how many black dresses do you really need is the good question. And I've been working on this for almost 2 years now. It's probably been about 1.5 years working on my wardrobe, trying to keep it quite minimal and more organized. And I'm really starting to get the hang of, you know, buying one item and taking something else out of my wardrobe that it can replace, kind of thing. But you can do this with everything. You know, if you wanted to buy new cutlery for your house because somehow forks, knives, or whatever have gone missing, then maybe it's time to get rid of the old cutlery to bring in the new, that kind of thing. So I think 1 in, 1 out is a really good mentality to making sure everything stays minimal and you don't end up with too much stuff again. Number 6, and the last tip for today, is to just keep decluttering. I do not believe that decluttering should be a one-time project. It is something that you should be doing all of the time. I declutter multiple times a year at different levels. Sometimes I declutter little things every week. Other times I'm decluttering once a month, 6 months, a year, but you have to keep coming back. I just don't believe it's possible to do it once and then everything's going to be fine forever. I think it's a continual process, and I think what I like the most, and this goes all the way back to the point that I was talking about when you had the maybe pile and you weren't sure about throwing things out. You keep things for 6 months and you come back to them and you redo the pile, and then you realize that you don't have the same attachment to it, you don't actually need it, and you can get rid of it. And I really enjoy that. I do it all the time with clothes. I say I'm gonna keep this, but I keep coming back to it, and then maybe the second, third time I come back, that's when I've made the decision that it definitely needs to go. So that's why it's really important to keep doing it, because then you can go back to that maybe pile months or years later and get rid of the things that you thought you wanted to keep or you weren't really sure about. So I just think it's a really enjoyable process. I enjoy decluttering. It like cleanses my life. It frees me up a little bit, and I really enjoy it. So I just wanted to share with you the tips that I use to approach decluttering. This is going to be really helpful for anyone that doesn't really know how to declutter or has never really tried. And I'm gonna declutter some things very shortly from my life, and if you guys would like to see some in-depth videos on what I'm decluttering and how I apply all of these, then please do let me know, and I really hope you have an amazing week this week. Let me know what the highlight of your week was last week, and up the top here you can check out my last video. Down the bottom I will leave a link to another one of my Motivation Monday videos, and I will see you in my next video.